For the past few years, many reforms for school lunches have been made under the Obama administration. From kindergarten to college, school lunches are lacking all across the board in schools across the nation. The scaling of foods among ages has been disregarded by many school systems in America. The quality of food has been forgotten among the push for a more healthy lunch, and the amount of food prepared for the students is often underwhelming for students forced to eat later in the day. Our panel analyzing school lunches will be made up of 4 people. First, I will introduce myself, Merrik. Josh will cover the portion sizes for different ages and lifestyles of all students. Students are often receiving too little food for the money spent, as found by Tom Foote from New Journal. I will cover the quality of food served to students around America compared to other countries, and Xavier will cover how more food needs to be prepared as some students are not receiving proper nutrition even with such small portion sizes. Our team has come up with multiple solutions for each issue that will be clarified more in depth later in the segment, but for now I will leave you with a brief highlight. When it comes to portion size, Josh recommends the government hires nutrition experts to analyze the situation in many schools. Too many students are not getting enough to eat. With the new president-elect Lane Doss from Times speculates Donald Trump may make new reforms in school lunch areas. I'll encourage that schools should poll students in order to ensure that quality foods are being produced and less food goes to waste. Finally, Xavier will cover how more food needs to be provided for schools, as some students will find all the food is gone by the time they finally get to lunch. I hope you all enjoy our panel's segment on school lunches, and for now I will let Josh take the camera.
Thank you, Merrik. So the biggest complaint that we seem to have is the portion sizes. They stayed the same all the way from elementary to high school. I went to a school where they did in fact stay the same all the way from 5th grade all the way through my senior year. And it was a problem because a lot of kids were going to the vending machines afterward, or even going up and getting more food from the a la carte place. I also played soccer, and a lot of the people would have school lunches and then they wouldn't have enough and they would still be hungry. So the Booster Club would actually have to give us more food and give us lunches so that we could perform at our best. This is a problem that a lot of different extracurricular activities are facing. So if you're in sports or plays or anything, you're not getting enough food, so you're not being able to perform at the level that you want to be. There's also not enough to perform in classes. So after you eat, you should be able to still have the same amount of energy to go and take your next test or do well on your assignment. And they always tell us to have a complete breakfast before coming to school, but what if you don't have enough lunch? They're kind of contradicting themselves. So we must stand up and fix these issues. So what the government's doing is they're trying to cut down on childhood obesity, which is a really good thing. We all want our kids to be healthy and grow up healthier. But instead of making the food healthier, what they're doing is just scaling back the portions. So the goal is to reduce calories, which they have done, but they have also limited the amount of food that we're eating. But unfortunately, the cost have actually stayed the same. So we're actually eating less food but paying the same amount. So the Tampa Bay Times said that in Pasco, the students were buying lunches was down actually 16%, but the cost to make the foods was actually up 1.3 million. And this is happening all around the country. But there's a simple solution to this problem. We need to increase the proportions as kids age. The elementary portions need to stay the same, but as we get up to middle school and high school, they should be proportionate to what the kids need. So our goal is to hire a food nutritionist to go around and figure out how much kids actually need to be eating, and then making a meal plan that is proportional to how the kids age. That way we will prevent kids from eating other snacks throughout the day which are unhealthy, and going home after school and eating just a lot of food as soon as they get home. Or having a really big dinner, which is proven to be bad for you. You want to eat bigger meals in the morning and have smaller meals as the day goes on, because you're not going to do as much activity later in the day, which will also help prevent obesity. We all want our kids to be healthy. So then next we need to hire a chef to make these bigger portions healthier, so that we maintain the level of kids not getting obese. We believe that making the meals even just slightly more expensive can help both of these things. It'll help the portion sizes, and how Merrik will explain, it'll help the quality of food as well.
So I'm going to tell you about the quality of food throughout countries in the world. So with the USA, you can see the lunch looks pretty bland. You got some tater tots, some peas, not very interesting, not even a meat on there. But if we start to look at other countries, like we go down to Brazil, for example, Brazil has much greens, looks like really good variety in their food, and much more interesting overall. If we go through the other countries, the trend continues. We see this with Italy, Finland, South Korea, and finally Greece. It's important to consider how far behind America really is in the quality of food with school lunches. Some things that could be done with this is possibly polling students to see what foods are preferred, and this would also help with the epidemic of waste of foods in America. So with that, I'm going to let Xavier take it away.
In every school, not everyone has the same lunch. Depending on what your teacher decides, you could have the last lunch. A lunch, which is the first lunch, tends to have the freshest batch of the food and you have the first dibs on food selection. B lunch is the middle lunch, and they tend to still have decently fresh food while still having a good amount of food options. Lastly is C lunch. These people tend to have the least freshest food and the least food options. Schools need to be more prepared to make sure that they make enough food for everyone to get some. So Merrik and I decided to conduct a survey over this. We asked students to rate the school lunches on a scale of 1 to 10, and the majority of the students that we surveyed rated the school lunches a 5 and below. And then we asked them how many times has there not been enough food prepared, and they said the majority of the answers were 0. And then we asked them, compared to food served in the past years at the school lunch, was it better, the same, or worse this year? Majority of them said it was worse, and then the second, a lot of people said it was the same, and nobody said it was better. And lastly, we asked, do you feel like the school lunches provide enough food? And the majority of them answered no, with a couple saying yes. So according to the New York Times, students tend to hate their school lunches because all the lunches tend to be serving only one main food option instead of having multiple options that students prefer. And you see this in the lines. The lines tend to be longer for the meals that they enjoy. And so you see that there are shorter lines in the a la carte and the option 2 line. At the end of the day, a bunch of food gets wasted because of the kids don't like what is offered in the other lines, and they don't want to buy a day-old leftovers. So schools are forced to throw them away. An easy solution would be to add more variety to our menu that people enjoy. This would limit food waste and make the lines go by faster. This is why some people say that private school lunches are better than public schools. According to beyondcron.org, public school cafeterias face challenges that some private schools don't, such as unpaid meal charges. Unpaid meal charges are when a student is in line to buy food but has no money in their account to pay for the food. Often the lunch person has a heart and allows them to have the meal without charging for it. This goes towards student nutrition the student nutrition department's budget. If we don't eventually pay for our meal, the money gets deducted from the department's budget. Private schools don't have to deal with this because the price of the food is included in the tuition, allowing them to avoid the unpaid meal charges. In the end, it would be beneficial for schools to better prepare their food. One way they could do this is by actually preparing their food. Most of the time, schools receive their food frozen and already pre-made. Making the food fresh would allow them to make enough for everyone while providing a fresher, more nutritious meal. Currently, they only do this for teachers, so why not do it for the kids who also sit for 7 hours and absorb information? They could come up with the funds needed by doing this, by limiting unpaid meal charges and keeping what comes out of the student nutrition department's budget to a minimum.
Okay. Today, Merrik, Josh, Lorenzo, Xavier, and I informed you of the situation of school lunches in America. Students of older ages especially are not receiving enough food due to bad scaling from kindergarten into college. In 2013, a rule created allowed all the students to receive the same amount of food as much younger students, according to the FDA. Okay, quality of food has been forgotten behind healthiness as we compared with other countries' lunches. With 1 in 3 children at risk for preventable disease, according to USDA, it is important to continue reforms in school lunches. Finally, we told you about how schools are often underprepared for students when it comes to school lunches. Our solutions today have been presented today by Josh and Xavier, as seen throughout the video as follows. Josh thinks nutritionists should be introduced into the school lunch system around the country. Spending a little extra food to keep our kids well fed is important. Okay, Merrik told us about quality of food in America. Xavier believes school lunches could be more fresh to allow for specific amounts of food being made. Teachers already received fresh lunches anyways, so is it really fair to leave our students behind? After my group has informed you about the school lunches, I would like to leave you with this. Would you like to continue a pattern of malnutrition in schools for the current and future students of America? Get involved and make sure everyone knows about how little attention is being spent on feeding the future of America. Thank you.
All right, thank you for watching our video, and we hope you enjoyed it.